So please welcome Joe to the show. Welcome, Joe.
Hello, it's nice to be here with you, Ahsley.
Oh, it's so nice to be with you. And I wanted to bring you on and share your magic. And, when you're in a group of, people that are always expanding and growing and, learning and discovering their passions and discovering their talents and their purposes on this earth, and always open to looking for really the magic in life and knowing that there is magic. And, when I started this podcast over 3 years ago, coming up with the name Uncover Your Magic, it just kind of came. And I thought, well, that's broad. But when I realized now, 3 years into it, it's kind of been that everybody has their own magic. And with you, it's just there's no way I could let you be in my life without sharing you because you have so much magic. But I would love for you to share, and what I think is so fascinating is when, we all start, I have my daughters that are in their teens, trying to, sift and sort their way through and figure out what they love and their passions. And I'm watching that unfold. And I am passionate about that because I didn't know what was anything. I knew what I liked kind of, but I was just kind of one of those floaters. And I didn't really figure out, I didn't have anyone to guide me, or I didn't know I had guidance within me. Didn't have that, those surroundings in my life. I had to really seek for myself, and now at 54, it's like, wow, it's all a journey, but it's all perfect. And we all experience the things in our life at the right timing, at the perfect divine timing, because everything is perfect. And I know we have we're in Joshua. That's kind of our connection with Gary Temple Bodley. That was what connected us. And I have met the most beautiful soul tribe in that group. And I know that when someone connects me through that, I know we are connected eternally, like no question. Like the minute I met you, I knew you were in my soul community, like for sure. Like we're going to die one day and go, oh my gosh, Joe, that's you? Like that was you? I know that. And in my soul, I know that. And I know you feel the same way. But I want you to, first of all, go to where like the beginning of your journey, kind of like what I just said, like how you kind of sifted and sorted your way through life and what brought you to this place now. And, we're going to discover what you do, but I kind of want to keep that kind of at bay now until we get to that place. Cause I think it's just an amazing, when you understand the magic that we all have and that we all come from source and we're all here to shine the magic and uncover it and be the ones that are the beacons of light, and know that you have that. And it's so beautiful to watch you, and that what you have done to people is show their light in a whole different way that I've ever experienced it in my life. So take it from there, Joe, wherever you want to bring it, but kind of bring us to that place where you are now.
Well, let me start real quick. In the fifth grade, I decided I want to be an artist. That was paramount to me. I was actually on a swing set, and years later, I didn't realize that the swinging back and forth was me deciding whether I wanted to be an artist or musician. And I chose an artist because my brother wanted to be a musician, and we fought all the time. And I thought, if I was a musician, it would just make my life really uncomfortable. So I chose an artist, but I didn't know. It was just broad. I just want to draw and paint. And then I didn't know what that really meant, because at first it was architecture, and then high school, I started drawing all the time. I wasn't very good. Went to art school, decided I want to be an illustrator, graduated, started studying with master painters. And something about that time is whenever I started painting with somebody, I would really fall into them, as in like I would start mimicking their style, just copying. And that never really sat well with me, even back then, but it just naturally happened. So I know a lot of people say, you have something you really want to chase, copy it, copy what they do.
Right.
but that still never really sat well with me, even back then. But it naturally occurred, and I did it over and over and over. And then I literally fell into video game industry. And I learned on the way, because back when I fell into it, it was a lot different than it is now. It was like back in, the early 90s. And I started off as an illustrator, painting backgrounds. And then it just sprung from there. I did so many things in the video game industry, even though I really had no interest in video games at all.
Oh, funny.
And I stayed in that industry for roughly 30 years, doing a variety of things like animation, 3D modeling, texturing, graphic design, illustration, concept art. And as the years went on, I started to get really, I'd say, disgruntled a little bit, because it's really what I didn't want to do. I just wanted to paint, draw and paint, not, no care in the world. I just want to draw and paint. But then, I adopted a lot of the beliefs about that, the struggling artists got to be poor. And I've known artists in my life that, some make a good living, some don't. So there was a lot going on there. But during that process, my father was a very spiritual man. So I actually even remember when I was 14 looking at his bookshelf. He had a book that was about getting out of the body and exploring these worlds, and I was 14, I was just like, wow, I want to do that. I dabbled in meditation now and then, but it wasn't until about 2007 or 6 that my girlfriend at the time, who is now my wife, got me some binaural beat program called Holosync. And I absolutely fell in love with it. I mean, I was hook, line, and sinker. I was addicted to the stuff. I would meditate for hours a day with it.
Oh, really? Huh.
Yeah, because it was having such traumatic effect on me. And it was just like, wow, this stuff is legit.
Like what? What effect?
I just felt such peace inside me afterwards that it would last all day. And it was just like, wow, I was centered and it was great. But I noticed it would bring up a lot of upheaval. I mean, at the time I called it upheaval. Like I'd go through these waves of like being real blissful. And then what would come next in a couple of days was just like, oh, this is horrible.
Huh.
I know now that it was like my limiting beliefs being shown to my face, but I wasn't aware of that at the time.
Will you explain that when you say that? Like, so you're telling me this bliss and this, after you getting like addicted to it, like it's feeding your soul, but then it's also bringing all these limiting beliefs up.
Yeah, it would bring up like I'd be triggered over anything, like somebody cut me off or somebody's in the line in the grocery store wearing a really obnoxious colored skirt or blouse or something. I'd be like, ah, and I would use that to be pissed off.
Why? I don't get that.
It would just happen. I wasn't very introspective in the sense of like really examining it at the time.
Okay.
I kind of believe that some of it that, experience that bliss and stuff just made what was underneath of me experiencing that more and more was just coming to the surface, but I really didn't know how to look at it.
Yeah, I get that.
And then another big thing that happened to me was in 2014, I took a meditation course called the Finder's Course, which was an 18-week course that was from Dr. Jeffrey Martin, had all this research that he did on positive psychology and fundamental well-being. And he put together all the meditation techniques from his research that rose to the top of the surface for working. And you cycled through these techniques until you found one that worked. And if it stopped working, you would change your technique. And I had profound shifts at the time during it. And
what's a profound shift?
I realized one of the shifts was I realized that a lot of the me striving to be an artist, a lot of it was based on false stuff of my ego. Like I wanted to be an artist because people would respect and love me. stuff like that. And this jealousy was just a facade. Me being jealous of other people was just a facade. So a lot of that crumbled away, but what was left was I felt very dry inside. Even though I was experiencing bliss, it was very flatlined. So at the time, I got rid of like almost all of my spiritual books, a lot of my art books, just because it just felt like, what am I doing? And I didn't paint for about a year.
Wow.
Then eventually I started painting again because I thought it'd be fun. And that seemed more of a pure reason why to do art.
And this is how long ago that you restarted this painting?
2016.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you started painting again. You're still working at the video game.
Yeah, I'm still working at the video game company. And also something that happened during that shift was became very empathic. I would pick up on people's illnesses, and like if someone had a hurt toe or something, I would feel it. But once they would leave, it would go away.
Huh. When did you realize that? I mean, I can say my toe hurts, but how do I associate that with
Well,
that
the reason
person?
why I bring up the toe is I went out to lunch with some of my workmates, and when we were coming back to work, we were walking back. For some reason, my toe started aching like crazy. I'm like, what is the deal? My toe never hurts. And then one of the guys next to me that came with us said, man, my gout is really acting up. It really hurts. And if you know what gout is, it materializes in the big toe. And I was like, wow. And then we went our separate ways at work. And then 2 minutes later, my toe is absolutely fine.
Wow.
That's when I really started to notice it. And like people with a lot of repressed emotions, whenever I came up and talked to them, my eyes would start crying. I wouldn't be like boo-hoo crying, but my eyes would start watering like crazy.
Oh my gosh.
And some of the things I learned from that is if I judge it, like, oh man, I don't want to feel this, and like start to label all these things like this sucks or whatever, that kind of locked it in my system. So I learned to just, if it's going to happen, just let it happen and don't think if it's good or bad. And eventually that neutralized, and it's really not a huge deal anymore, but I'm not a person that goes around a huge amount of crowds.
You're too sensitive.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay. Okay, let's get into this. So when you got into Joshua, when you got into you took the boot camp?
Yeah, this was pretty recent. I took the boot camp for the first time in January of this year.
Okay. And that was attracted to you by listening to a podcast?
I saw Gary do an interview with Kevin Moore.
Oh, yes. Okay.
And then from that, I ordered his first book, read it, ordered his second book, read it, ordered his third book, read it. And then I did the Ascension experience, just the first course, the alignment course. And from there, I signed up for the boot camp. And my wife and I took it twice now. Okay.
So from that point on, that is when you start to because I understand the work, you speak of the limiting beliefs and, what we learn from that and being triggered, and, everything inside of us is a reflection of the outside world. And tell me what were your aha moments and from that experience? Like what do you believe drew you to it, and why do it twice? And, what is your process of going through that? And what have you seen and uncovered?
Well, let me first say, I was never super attracted to the law of attraction.
Okay.
I dove into a lot of spiritual things, and I gravitated towards a lot of non-duality teachers and meditation teachers because I'm a big meditator. And, I've listened to a lot of Abraham Hicks, it's a lot of the YouTube stuff. And it was kind of like, in my perspective, I'd feel it like, oh yeah, that feels good. But it always kind of felt like the shallow end of the spiritual pool. Like everybody just wants something. They want a car, they want this, but no one actually really wants to get underneath there and be really happy. They just want objects to be happy. So that's the reason why I was never attracted to it. But when I heard, the Joshua stuff, it started to make a lot of sense and click to me. Like, oh, this other stuff that I've been doing, all this meditation, this is the other piece to it. Because I know a lot of people that meditate like crazy, but other parts of their life was really unbalanced.
Right.
And I know that because mine was. So one of the hugest ahas I had in his material was when he discussed inspiration. And when inspiration comes, no matter what it is, whether it's a life-changing thing or just what to do for dinner, to follow it.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes if it's like a big life-changing thing, these fears will pop up telling you, no, don't make that phone call. Oh, don't do this, blah, blah, blah. And that's all fear-based.
Right.
But if you push through that, wow, incredible things will happen. And that just made so much sense to me because I so resonate with inspiration. To me, that was like, that's the missing piece right there. No one's ever told me it like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just gravitated towards that and ran with it.
And how do you do that?
Well, when I get inspired to do something, I just act on it now. And if there's fears, I just push through them as best I can. And if I can't, I just write about it. Like what I go down into the limiting belief, like what is the limiting belief here?
Give me an example. Give me an example that you've done recently.
Oh, recently a limiting belief that I had had anything to do with inspired action. It had to do with my brother. One of my brothers, once I moved to LA, started to send me just the nastiest text messages. Like, you made a mistake going there. California's trash, Hollywood, blah, 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 blah. Why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? And this just started to increase over the years, right? Until I eventually blocked him on my phone. And then actually it was either last night or the night before, I realized what that was my repressed anger. And it was manifesting in him coming at me with these angry text messages, because what I really felt inside was I was unsure that moving here was the right decision.
Right.
I was unsure of all this stuff. And he was the only one in my life that was reflecting this repressed anger back at me. And when I wrote it out and pieced it all together, it was like this huge weight lifted off me, like, oh, yes.
Yeah.
And
have you talked to him?
No, I haven't talked to him.
Okay. Is that something that you want to do, or is that not, once it's an inspired thought, you're going to take action on it?
If it's inspired to contact him, I will, but it's one of those things.
Yeah.
If it happens, it happens. But
the feeling of, freeing yourself from that emotion, and understanding where it came from, and knowing that it's all within you, like it has nothing to do with him. He's just the alarm.
Yeah.
To acknowledge that, right?
And I was able to let him off the hook. Any resentment I had or bitterness of him doing that, that's all gone now. And I feel so much more wide open in my heart, and in my body just feels so much more relaxed.
Yes, so free. What about your relationship with your wife? Has that changed with
Absolutely. When I came to LA and moved, and when we got married, she became extremely ill for the longest time, 8 years.
Oh, wow.
She, about a year ago, got well. And I've learned a lot from that. A lot of that was the illness. I worked through this as well. The illness was a result of me being unsure and thinking I needed an excuse to tell people why I failed as an artist.
Wow.
And why, I felt like I deserved, I felt like this was a karmic thing that this was happening, and that I had to struggle. And I wasn't worthy of having things work out. And then I worked through that and realized that her illness, from my perspective, was a gift. It showed me that what's important in life, it's not money, sex, and power. It is connection, heart-to-heart connection. That is what's important.
Right.
And it showed me my strength. It showed me, it really got me into spirituality at a deeper level. And it's made me who I am today. I mean, and I'm so thankful and grateful for it now. And so instead of being bitter and resentful towards this illness, I'm actually thankful. I mean, it was a rough 8 years, so
Oh, I bet.
I'm grateful for it now. If it wasn't for that, I would not be here where I am today.
Right. Oh, I love that. I look at, where we're at in our life right now with this thinking and the perspectives that we have, and it's shifted so much of my life and the way I view anything. I mean, the fears and the worries, and it's just so, I was listening to Sarah Landon. I've had her on my podcast, and she wrote a new book, and I was listening to that today, to like about like death or disease, and it's just all the human part of us that looks at it as fear or worry, all the things you could have done, or I'm sure you did during those 8 years until you came to the moment of, wow, this is for me, and realizing that all of that is for our highest good, and to live in that mind and know that everything that's coming to you is for you, and to know that and have that peace, and that it's such a I can't even, like, with my daughters, raising as a mother, watching them go through life and seeing things that happen to them. But gosh, it's just so fun to watch and to think, and then we have the conversation, and I mean, they're so lucky they get to have this perspective at this age. And I pray that they, keep, which I'm sure they will, but continue seeing life that way. But when you understand, like, all the things in our life are such a gift, and we have really, like, it was our plan, like you and your wife, like that was all your soul contract is, I mean, that's how I look at it, and what you were supposed to learn in this reincarnation. But it just has that feeling of, something that happens to me, or something, whatever it is, at the beginning, I would say a year ago, I didn't get it. I didn't get it to where I get it now, but it's like, oh, there's no fear. And we're human, and that's going to come up, right? We're going to, oh, wait. And then it's so funny because I'm like, isn't that interesting, Ashley? You had that, that triggered, and that's fun. And that's when I love that, because just like you say, like when something comes up, it's like, what is that in me? But what a powerful, what does powerful inner work and this inner journey that we've been doing. It's really I mean, I've completely transformed. And I know it just continues as we watch the others around us transform. We, being in a group like that, and it's growing and growing, but watching us all transform, you look at the others because you're seeing you in them, and that just takes it to the 100. I mean, this level that you can't even explain of what that does. I mean, being in person with people, like when I was at the retreat, you just get that there's this magnetism of being, in that like-minded understanding that we have, that takes what you believe and know to, I mean, it just catapults, like takes it to the next level, right? Tell me, Joe.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Tell me what you like. So you've done ayahuasca, you've done plant medicine, right?
Yes. Actually, last year, and we did 3 ceremonies. And right before our 3rd ceremony, which we did on New Year's, we were really into the Joshua material. So those two, for me, worked hand in hand together, because since I knew kind of how the system works with limiting beliefs, during the ceremony, I would start to have these, I would say, positive visions of my future, of what I thought, would be ideal for future, then what would pop up right after would be kind of like my mental construct of what's keeping that at bay.
Hmm.
And it would be like these little movies of how I interact with people,
Right.
and how I interact with myself inside my mind. And this was coupled with, some very enticing, trippy psychedelic visuals. So it was even more enjoyable to go through. And once I recognized that it was happening, I just started going through these one by one by one by one. It was just cycling through. And then on the second night of ayahuasca, it just felt like I was being rained on by inspiration, because I was very focused on inspiration, and it was coming in me and raining on me, and it was just completely magical.
Huh. When you say inspiration, like especially during an ayahuasca ceremony, is it ideas are flooding to you? Like when you say raining, is it like you're getting all these ideas to do in your life?
Yes, and also more of a, how can I describe this? Like these raindrops, these psychedelic geometric raindrops would hit me. And I just knew that in this raindrop, it was kind of like a zip file, that
Oh,
you open up, and it
uh-huh.
hit me. I didn't know what was in it, but I knew it will eventually open up. Those were raining down on me, and it just felt amazing. Of course, I did have a lot of ideas for paintings and stuff, but a lot of it was just unknown, but felt. I think that's the best way I could say it.
Right. Huh. See, I've never done an ayahuasca or a plant medicine. I know I will one day, but right now I haven't. And I am so fascinated. I've interviewed, I mean, I would probably say if I've interviewed 100 people, like 50 of them would have had that experience. So it's so much more in the mainstream these days.
Yeah.
And, I've interviewed people that have their retreats, and it's so interesting. And, when I think of you, and I think of you started this like in January, really, but you ended your job.
Yeah.
Explain that, because you
Well, my
decided
job ended
for you.
well, in the first boot camp. I had a lot of fear come up. I didn't realize that there was a low level fear about my work in general. And I thought I was going to be fired. That what kept coming up during the first boot camp. In the second boot camp, none of that came up. I was just on fire, so to speak, as far as just working through these beliefs and just being ecstatically happy and working on these limiting beliefs and acting on inspiration. And they were little inspirations. It would be like, what's to make for dinner, or email him, text her, stuff like that. Or do this painting, don't do that.
Right.
And I started feeling better and better and better. And then we graduated from the boot camp, number 2. The very next day, on the Monday, the company I worked for shut its doors. And it just felt like, this would have freaked me out before, but this time it was just like, yes,
Love
it
it.
is time.
Right.
Yes, bring
Oh,
it on.
right.
And then I instantly noticed my sensitivity to my thoughts just increased dramatically.
Explain that.
Well, it just felt like I knew I wasn't going to be looking for a job. And so that whole space that would be taking up my mind to do that, and to be worried about my job, just made everything else become more electric in my brain. So if I was starting to feel fuzzy or bad, I would know exactly why. And that was heightened. So it was pretty magical. It was just like, oh, wow, okay, no, work through this, work through that. And I started working through stuff so quickly. And I just became so excited. And since my wife did it as well, she wasn't worried as well. She would, be freaked out. Oh my God, you don't have a job. What are we gonna do?
Right.
It was none of that. It was like,
But
we
you knew
did
you
this.
didn't want to have a job. You knew you weren't going to look for a job.
Yes, it was evident to me.
Why?
because this is the next. I mean, the universe has given me, as you like to say, breadcrumbs. This was like
Right.
a loaf of bread right there. Eat this and move on. It was, and so many things are aligning up, and the things that I'm doing are starting to sell, and so many things are starting to happen on the outskirts that it's just like, no, this is the next movement.
And do you get those thoughts? So you do get thoughts that you question and you just push them away.
Some of them I will entertain, because one of them was like, this job, they may restart the company in some way. And then one of my friends in the Joshua community said, just be aware that, you may want to go back, or you may have to go back sometime, and to not let that be a big thing as well. If you had to go back, don't have all this angst and stuff about that. So I've released that. Like, if I have to go back, it's fine.
Right.
It's not, because sometimes I've noticed people and myself, sometimes when they make a decision, if they have to do something that they did before, it's like, oh my God,
Right.
there's all this constriction and all these limiting beliefs around that. So I'd rather just be completely open about it.
Right.
But my intention is to know not.
Right. Okay, let's go to what your intention is now.
My intention is now is to paint with the most unguarded emotions and feelings I possibly can, and sell my artwork and do what I did for you, color codes.
Yeah, and let's talk about that. So I'm talking to the audience now, but so Joe contacted me through an inspired action, right? Or inspired thought. You took the action, right? What I'm going to call Ahsley and offer her a free color code
Yeah, I said,
painting.
hey, let's just do it. See what she'd have to say.
So we had a call and he asked me some questions, and you explain it, because so I've never heard of this, and I am always fascinated by, like I said in the beginning, these gifts that we all have these gifts. And sometimes when go back to being a mom again, like I want my girls to get there, to see that, because they're in there, and all the things that are limiting them to think that they're there, all these beliefs that I just know the magic in that, like you are explaining it so beautifully, on really seeing that it is just this belief that it's not true. It's like, gosh, there's no limits in this life. There's nothing that's stopping us from doing anything. But when you find that gift that you have to do this artwork, first of all, just the artwork alone is beyond beautiful. Like, I look at your website and I'm just like, geez, it really, like, there's no way that this not wanting to go back to that work, like I get why you're so confident about that, but it's just, people are just so drawn to that. It's just it's almost like I look at my painting and I'm looking at it like, I know there's a story in there, and I can't wait for you to share that, because we're going to do that today. But there's this, I can tell that your soul wrote it, like or painted it, like I feel this, just, I don't know. Right. I explain it. So let's talk about it, because people are going to be, you're talking about not going back to work, going to be so busy painting these people's color codes after this.
Well, a color code. This came to me before the Joshua material, but I did a few at the time, and then limiting beliefs stopped me from continuing. Let me just say that. So what a color code is when the pandemic hit, I had to be in a lot of meetings at work on like Zoom and whatnot. And I started to notice when people talked, I would get colors and images associated when somebody talked. I would see it and feel it. I'd be like, interesting. And then I started to notice when somebody else would talk, I would get other images. I didn't think much of it. I mean, I really didn't. I was just like, whatever, fine. Maybe I ate some funky asparagus the night before. Maybe, who knows what it was. And then one time in meditation, it just came to me. You should paint that for somebody and call it a color code. See what happens. So I did something called a prototype project, which I just offered it for people for free. And if they wanted to pay for it at the end, they could. And I did a few of these and it actually worked out. And then I stopped doing it because out of fear. But what the color code, now that I've done quite a few of them, what the color code is I will have a talk with you and I'll ask you questions. And this is for me to get in a connection with you. And once that connection is pretty solid, I can recall you and parts of the conversation, and those images just pick up. And when I start to paint it, those images start to continue, and things that I should tell you come out through. It's almost like a dialogue is happening to me while I paint it. And I purposely don't paint objects in there. It's just colors and shapes. That is done on purpose. One of the reasons why is I don't want somebody to get locked into something like, oh, there's a tiger here. Oh, there's a this there. And that's just some mental stuff we don't need. So what comes out is just colors and patterns. And the images I get are always moving. So I have to take my artistic license to grab some stuff. There are themes that I'll see in some people's, they have constant themes, and then I try to do those themes and the colors that I'm getting in those themes. And as I'm painting it, just kind of a story is woven. And I don't write any of that story down because I've come to just trust when I go over the color code with you, I'm going to be looking at the image as well. And it all comes back to what I should be saying.
Yeah. So, you know, so when you're talking to me, even now, you see colors, like how Dominic, like I introduced you to Dominic, and he sees auras. It's different.
Yes, I believe it's different. I did talk to Dominic. He's awesome, by the way.
Yes,
that guy is so cool. It is different. I don't know what it is. I wouldn't, I could speculate, but it's just something I'm picking up off somebody's signature as a soul, because when I look at you, I don't see auras.
Right.
It's something radically different, but along the same lines as well. It's just my authentic way of connecting.
Right. Okay, let's do it. Let's look at my color code. Okay, I have mine here. So this is for YouTube. So if you are on the podcast, you got to get on YouTube and look at my picture. And that is my picture.
Yes. Okay. Your color code.
Want me to keep it up or no?
No, you don't have to keep it up.
Okay.
So you see that swirl that comes out from the side that is black, that swirls all the way around?
Yes.
That swirl, that blackness is the deepest part of you. That's the part that doesn't have your ego attached to it. There's no identity there. It's just pure source. And it's wrapping around. It's very flexible. And a lot of energy is attracted to it. So I'm just going to be jumping around like that light peach. And the light peach is a lot of young energy around you. And it's very, it's a little bit pale orange and peach because it's light. And I usually see that around younger people or people that have kid at heart. And it's all wrapping around your black no identity. And this is you teaching and changing people, helping people change. To swirl, you're swirling all around them. Your no identity is swirling around people and helping them adjust and see themselves in a new way. With this light lavender in the middle, that's spiritual and a lot of kindness. And you're helping people understand to be more kind to themselves and loving, to see the purity inside them, which is the white in the middle. And you can kind of see that these orange things coming within that, and they almost look like, to me, like petals of a flower. And to me, that signifies you're helping people actually flower, their consciousness flower, and to be more present with themselves.
Hmm.
And okay, this yellow is just joy. This joy is swirling around with what you do. And the green is a lot of teaching and growth, and it's just helping people. And you get a lot of joy doing that. I mean, an immense amount of joy. The yellow is sprinkled throughout this whole thing in different areas. But the joy is, it's almost like that joy is kind of a, it's bending and shaping the way the void moves around your life. Because you have so much joy that you will shift and change because it's so joyful. You yourself will shift and change, and thus you will shift and change a lot of people around you. Now let's go down to the bottom where we have these lines, kind of like swirling lines. We have these greens and these purples. And this sky blue. The sky blue is, it's higher wisdom, but when the blue that you have in yours, this higher wisdom, is you kind of take it light and easy, almost like a child looking at the sky. And it's very expansive. And those green lines they're shooting through are teaching and learning. That is going to be a constant in your life. It sprung up at some point in your life, and it is just continuing on. And that is going to be sprinkled with more young energy as a background to that. You will always have young energy in the background as you teach and grow. And that is pretty much, I see that as a constant in your life. And this is just a reflection of that. And down in that corner is another black dot with some white and blue. That again is to remind you that this teaching and growth that you have, it's always being sprung from the void. I call it the void, and people tend to get a little scared of it. But just think of that as if, you had no ego, like, and you were doing things without any fear, that is where that springs from.
Gosh.
Okay, up the top, you have this purple, and it's kind of a big presence in your life. It's not all this, but I really sense a strong male presence. This may be your husband. I'm not sure. This is for you to decide. But take this for what it's worth, okay?
Okay.
At some point, because I know nothing about your relationship with your husband or your husband, so just take this with however you want to take it. But I feel really compelled to say it. Your husband, at a certain point in his life, it may have happened, it may not. My suspicion, it hasn't yet. But he is going to have a huge spiritual awakening. And it may happen through, you're going to be involved in this heavily, but it may happen through some sort of physical activity with you. That may be something that you guys are doing. It may be sexual. It may be something, but at a certain point, he is going to drop into this void oneness. And you are as well, but you'll be a lot more familiar with it. But at a certain point, that is going to drastically change his life, and he will really dive in deep to this spiritual stuff in a way that is unexpected.
Wow.
And it's going to be magical for you both, but it is so strong there that I just had to say that.
Yeah, thank you. I love it. And you're crying?
And I get a little emotional.
Oh,
It's pretty strong feeling.
Joe. Wow.
And so the blue around there is also just high, intense wisdom. And it's swirling around there. And if you see that black void,
Yeah.
the green and the the green and the yellow are, the green is growth and the yellow is just ecstatic joy. Now that red there is what made me think of sexuality or just activity. It may not be sexual, but I'm compelled to say sexual activity. And that's a big catalyst. Now let's move over to these almost two little flowers you have in yours. I don't know if you could see them.
Yes, I see them as flowers.
Those are your daughters.
Oh,
Those are how you see them, not how they are. Meaning if I did a color code for them, theirs would be drastically different, but that's how
right.
you see them. And that
Got
is
it.
how you see your husband.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And it is just a lot of love and joy that you see these two. And they're both different, but similar. As you can see, they have similar shapes, but different in color. But they do have this lovely pink around them, and they are swirling and changing. And they love you both. You have a very loving family.
Hmm.
And one thing I'm compelled to tell you is when you're the first person that I've had to bring this up, but I've known this was going to happen. You may want to view your color code, like this, like I sent it to you with this is top, this is bottom, but turn it to the side sometime and view it like that.
Oh, okay.
Especially when things in your life are a little topsy-turvy or a little crazy, just rotate it again and view it like that. And with that, you may have shifts, because as you look at this over the next week or so, you're going to be assigning things to it. Like, oh, maybe Joe said something like this, and I feel that this color is here, and this may be representative of this. But when you turn it around, things will change and morph. You're like, oh, hey, maybe this means this, and this means that. But the big thing I will say to you is to just feel the colors and the shapes. You will have images and stories that come up, but the big thing is to just feel, because sometimes when you feel and not label it, you'll go deeper into more feelings. Then stuff will come up that is just magical and beautiful.
You mean you've never had it where you've told someone to turn it? Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Okay.
Like yours can be viewed from any angle.
Okay.
And it'll be equally as powerful.
When you said the white is the source?
The white is purity.
Purity.
Like pure, childlike, just magic purity. And it's sprinkled. You can tell it's kind of coming off the blackness, and it's just sprinkled throughout, coming off there. That's right. That's kind of part of that purity that you give off when you teach. And you're getting people to go into this almost a vortex to find that joy, because joy is always there right before the purity.
The yellow.
Yeah.
The yellow. I almost see two birds. Like, it's so funny. when you say turned it, I'm like, gosh, I'm looking at a completely different picture. When we were young and you went to the mall and you kept your eyes on something, and that you'd see something different. I don't know what that's called, but it's not like that. But I meant when I turn it, it gives me that different perspective. Or if they will say, what do you see in this picture? And you see a frog, but it's really a horse. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like that kind of a illusion. But when I look at this, it's been sitting on my counter for the last, few days. And I'm looking at it thinking, I cannot wait to see the story that Joe's going to tell me about this, because I want to look at this picture with meaning, and to know I get to have this recording now, that I get to listen to it again and again. But, even the two little flowers, I was looking at that the other day. That didn't enter my mind that those would be the girls. But I mean, now, of course, that makes sense. And the cool thing about the purple on the top, when you bring Richard in, oh, I can't wait for him to hear this, because, you don't even know me. You don't know anything about me unless the little interviews that I've had on my podcast of, but it's just amazing that you can get emotional from talking about it.
Well, stuff comes up, and usually I'll be resistant to say some things, and then when the emotions are very strong and nagging at me, that's when I know I need to say it, because sometimes I will push it away. If it
Oh,
keeps
you will?
coming, it's like,
Huh.
no, you gotta say this.
Right.
So one thing to remember about the color code, it is a constant reminder of just how magnificent you are. And I painted it with such love that it is actually encoded with the love, and it's pure, and it's for you, and it's a constant reminder for you of actually who you are and who you can be and who you will be.
Wow. I love it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
Oh my gosh. And you paint it with, so you have to explain the different different options that people can pick from.
Well, what I gave you was a color code mini, and that is painted in gouache, and it is roughly a 15 by 15. And then from there, they jump in size, and they're no longer gouache paintings, they're oil paintings. And they just get bigger and bigger. I offer a 16 by 16, a 24 by 24, and a 36 by 36. I am open and willing to do any size that you want. It doesn't have to be a square, but I work in a square format just out of simplicity, and kind of keeps things together. Now, each person's is drastically different, and how I tell them to view it is drastically different. There are some commonalities, but for all intents and purposes, it's different for each one. The colors, the shapes, everything.
What if I asked you to do one now on a bigger, would it be a completely different color code?
If it was for you,
Yes.
yes, I believe it would. There might be some commonalities, but in fact, there probably would be a commonality now that I tune in. That swirl would still be there,
Okay.
but all the rest would kind of be different. And I don't know how the swirl would come in. It would be small, big, large, you know. And the
Can you
bigger
do,
ones, they have more stuff going on, just because I have more space to work and whatnot. And I sometimes, with the oil paintings, I will add metal paint to it, like gold and silver, if it's called for.
have you ever done your own, or could you ever do your own?
I have recently done my own.
And did you discover new things about you or uncover more of your magic?
I believe so. I actually want to repaint it bigger, because I only did a real small one. My wife saw it. She's like, you got to paint that huge.
Oh, and you've done one for your wife, I'm sure.
Yes, I have. Hers is bigger. It's a 24 by 24.
Oh, Joe, I just think this is just gonna, it's added to my life. I mean, just listening to the meaning of it. And the cool thing, not cool, that's the word, that's like, the word is like unbelievable how you just look at it now after you painted it 2 weeks ago, and it's not even anything written. You just are reading the color code as what it comes to you. Like, it's not on, there's no anything printed.
Yeah, I'm a slow writer, and I'm not, it's a struggle for me to write sometimes. So I could do it, but it would take me all day to articulate my thoughts. But I actually like the fact, because I like things unscripted.
Yeah.
That's why I'm drawn to color codes. Is there's no plan of attack I have doing each color code. It's got to be in the moment, because that's when it's coming through. You got to act when
Right.
inspiration comes. That's when the action happens.
Right. Exactly. Oh, so let's coming to the end, see how fast that hour goes. How can people find you? You can find you through your website.
Yes, it's kresoja.com. That's my last name, KRESOJA.com. All the information is there to contact me, look at my artwork, purchase the color code, or if you just want to reach out and email me and say, what's up? You can do that there too.
And Instagram, I've been looking at your.
Yeah, I have an Instagram. All that stuff is on my website. So Instagram, I believe it's Joe Kresoja.
Okay. Oh, so fun. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for this. It's been
Thank
so
you.
beautiful and so fun to learn.
Thank
And
you. It was a joy
oh,
to do yours. It was such a pleasure.
oh, thank you so much, Joe. You're in my life forever.
Absolutely.